Hi there, and welcome to Insomnia Insight number 381, in which I will share with you a brand new analogy that I hope you will find really valuable and helpful. This came to me a few weeks ago. I was having a conversation with my wife. We were just about to go to bed, actually, and I immediately wrote it down in this list of things I want to talk about. So here it is. It is the analogy of the hammer of self-criticism and the wedge of idealism. And I think you will recognize yourself. I certainly recognize myself a lot in this analogy. So let's get to it. So I think we'll start here by thinking of, a common sort of misunderstanding here. We often, when we think of someone who sleeps well or has no trouble sleeping, we often think of that person as like a good sleeper. In other words, we think of that person as having a good or a healthy relationship with sleep. We think of that person as having confidence, but in reality, this is not the case. If you know somebody who sleeps well and ask them, what's your relationship with sleep? They'll just go like, I don't know. And if you ask them if they're confident about their sleep, they'll also go like, I don't know what you're talking about. They don't have any relationship with sleep, much as they don't have any relationship with breathing. If you ask somebody like, are you confident about breathing, or do you see yourself as a good breather? It kind of doesn't make any sense. Breathing is just something that happens, and so is sleep when you're not struggling with it. So it's a misunderstanding that there are such people as good sleepers, right? And here is where we start talking about idealism, because when you think that there are good sleepers or people with a good relationship with sleep or people that are confident about the sleep, you think that's who I should be. That's ideal. That's what I want. So if you take this idea of idealism, this ideal picture, this ideal person that you want to be, and think of that idealism as a wedge, as like a triangular wedge here, right? And then you imagine self-criticism as a hammer. And self-criticism is when you go, why did this happen again? I didn't sleep again. I'm having so much anxiety. I can't control this, all that. Like when you're kind of blaming yourself, hard on yourself, then you think of that self-criticism as a hammer. And then you can just imagine and then having an image of yourself and think about yourself. You have these three things now. You have the wedge, you have the hammer, and you have yourself. And now just imagine, like in this scenario, in this setup, if you will, what happens, or what has already happened. If you just spend a second thinking about this, you can already see that you have kind of yourself in the middle, right? And then you have this wedge of idealism. And then every time you don't sleep, you pound yourself. Why didn't I sleep? What happened, right? And then there's this kind of split. There's the split between yourself and the ideal version of yourself. And then another night goes by and you sleep very little. Boom, that's another hit with a self-critical hammer there. And the wedge kind of like goes even further in between yourself and your ideal self. And then that just goes on and on. Every time you're anxious, boom. Every time you can't control your thoughts, boom. Every time you have a sleepless night, boom. And after a while, there can be this like big gap between who you think you should be and who you feel you are. And that, when that gap just widens and widens, it feels like really frustrating, hopeless. You're like, I can never get there. I can never get to that person I am. That person I want to be just gets further and further and further along. And it's not clear that it is actually the self-critical hammer that is making that happen. And, this is absolutely not that is limited to insomnia or trouble sleeping. Some examples I thought of were weight loss. You're like, I want to lose weight, but I can't. I just ate a whole bag of chips yesterday. Why did I do that? Why am I doing this to myself? Boom, that's the self-critical hammer again. Really, really problematic when it comes to weight loss. Or smoking. Like, I want to stop smoking. I've tried 7 times. I cannot do it. I'm still smoking. Why am I smoking again? Boom, self-critical hammer. Or on a personal level, for me, where this really hits home, is parenting. When you're like, you have these kids that you love more than anything else, right? But sometimes you feel like, they want to play with you, for example, and you don't have that like energy. You just feel like, no, I don't want to do that. And then there it goes like, boom, why are you doing this? Like, you want to have kids. Why can't you just be happy all the time and play with them all the time, always be there for them? And then that wedge, splits that kind of like how you look at yourself and creates more trouble. So you can see that this is very applicable to sleep, but it's really kind of a life lesson to it. It applies all over the place. So, having talked about this, we can kind of fairly easily see, like, how do we change this? Well, it is really like easing up on the pounding. That is where it's at. Like, and how do you do that? You can easily get to a place like, oh my gosh, I totally see this. I totally see this. I'm so hard on myself, and I'm still hard on myself. Why am I still hard on myself? I know I shouldn't be hard on myself. I'm still hammering myself, even if I don't. That it can easily go to a place where, like, you can be critical of yourself for being critical of yourself, which of course is not helpful. So, like, the way to ease up on the pounding, I think, is really awareness of and self-kindness. There, you recognize that when you have that thought, like, why couldn't I sleep again? Why didn't I make this happen? Why am I still anxious? You're like, oh, there's that self-critical hammer again. And just by acknowledging it, just by seeing that, by deploying this hammer, I'm creating more struggle for myself. That alone, sort of like without effort, just by acknowledging this happening, things get easier and easier. And when you sort of stop the, or like let go of, or you allow the hammering to not happen again, if you will, then that wedge that was between, like, yourself and your ideal self will sort of float up naturally, and you will feel more whole, like a one person, and things will just become much more peaceful, and sleep can happen in a very, very effortless way. So I hope this analogy was helpful to you. Let me know in the comments section what you thought, and if this applied to you. And as always, I hope that you'll find everything in these videos on this channel that you need to get to a place where you sleep really well and don't struggle at all. But if you would like to have some more support on your path, if you'd like to work with myself, then head over to our website and you can see how you can do that. And you can also submit questions, of course, there. So really nice talking to you today, and hope to have you back real soon. Until then.